Last week during our Your Vote is Power, Power in Action live stream, we talked about how disinformation and misinformation contribute to voter suppression. This week, I'm super excited because we've invited Terrance Woodbury, founding partner and expert researcher at HIT Strategies. We'd also like to introduce some amazing members from the cast of Hamilton, including Darnell Abraham, who has also played roles in Ragtime and the national touring cast of The Color Purple, and Lincia Cabede, who has been featured in the national tour of Rent and as a backup singer touring with Beyonce, and Crystal Joy Brown, who is in the Broadway cast for Hamilton, and who, when we talked earlier in the week, I gushed over seeing her in the musical Motown. And so I want to kick off the conversation with you, Crystal. You've done some pretty amazing work. I realized later that I watched you perform a number of times. Can you tell me, yeah, well, it's great for me because you're a fantastic performer. And so can you talk to us a little bit of why voting and talking to people about voting is so important to you?
I grew up basically in our nation's capital. I grew up 10 minutes outside of DC. My aunt went to Howard. We're just I grew up in politics. I grew up knowing that as a Black person, it was always immediately impressed upon me that I had to make sure that no matter what, I was always engaging with democracy. It was always a big deal. My family all works for the government. In some other reality, I probably would have become a lawyer. And they wanted me to really bad. And my grandmother's still like, you still can do it. But just the idea of participating, I think being raised with those values and understandings, helped me to always be socially conscious and aware of whatever platform I do or don't have, to be actively in my circle trying to get people to vote, because this is one piece that my ancestors fought and died for. So I can't ignore the ancestors,
Exactly. And I think one of the most important things to talk to Black folks about is our vote is power. And one of the things that we've seen is that Black women especially are not only the backbone of the Democratic Party, but really influential in terms of voting in the Black community. Lencia, can you talk a little bit with us about why talking about voting is so important to you?
I couldn't agree more with all the stuff that Crystal was saying. I just think it's a privilege. It's our responsibility to engage in our democracy, and voting is one of the ways we preserve it and we enhance it over time. And especially as a woman of color, I just feel it's so painful to continue to have the conversations over and over again about the countless injustices that are happening and plaguing Black and Brown communities. And voting is one of the concrete ways we can contribute to making sustainable change in our country, because like we were saying, this is a right we had to fight for. And so it feels so empowering to be able to engage politically in that way, because it feels like, again, a concrete step to some hopeful future for us to achieve. That's why it's important to me.
Definitely. So Darnell, tell us a little bit about you and why you're so excited about voting. Because we were talking a little bit earlier, and you were literally jumping out of your seat with excitement to encourage people to vote.
Man, because it's personal. This is very personal, and the thing is, there's a history within our country where Black and Brown people have been marginalized for years, and I think this is a way of fighting back against that and saying, you know what, my voice counts. I will not be silenced. And so I think it's kind of like the fighter in me, that's like, you better get your behind out that door. You better go vote. I don't care if you vote by mail. I don't care if you go to the polling place, wear a mask, six feet, apart. But the thing is, it's voting. It's yes, there's a duty, but there's also joy in it, because like Crystal was saying and Lindsay were saying, our ancestors, died and fought for the right to do so. So there should be a sense of celebration and joy that comes with that, but also a sense of reverence that I personally carry. My wife and I, we were just filling out our mail-in ballots last night, and just the gravity, of making my selections. It was something spiritual, about it. And so I'm telling everybody, man, I'm saying, call your wife, call your husband, call your kids too, call everybody, vote, just vote. because there's a lot of people who don't want you to. And I really do mean that. I mean, we see that right now with tactics and strategies that are at play right now, where there is this concerted effort to suppress voters by disseminating disinformation or misinformation or misleading, misguiding people. And that's offensive. You know, that really is offensive, because for me, that says you're playing me to be a fool. And I am no fool. So I think a lot of people in this country, I think that feel the same way. So one of the best ways to rebel, one of the best ways to protest that kind of foolery is to go vote.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So Terrance, you are a pollster, which means you have talked to or heard from lots of folks, including Black people, about voting. How does your research compare with what Darnell, Lincia, and Crystal have just shared?
You know, we're seeing the exact same thing. And I feel like I have the luxury and the privilege to sit with young voters and Black and brown voters every single day. I mean, I spend the last 5 hours of every day in focus groups with these voters. It is the best part of my job. It was a lot more fun when I got to do it in person and actually go into what I like to call America, where real people live. Because I also live in Washington, D.C. and grew up in Prince George's County. And so, you know, there's a level of information here. It's like the information bubble. Folks know about Amy Barrett's, you know, Supreme Court confirmation hearing, and that's the kind of things that people follow here. But the average American and the average young American just doesn't follow politics this way. What they do follow is the pain that they feel, the disappointment that they felt from politics. And I have to, I mean, I'm just honest with these voters when I talk to them in focus groups, that it is a frustrating and oftentimes slow moving system. Progress doesn't always happen fast, but it is happening. And it will and it will happen a lot faster when we engage. And I think that what we've seen over the summer through protest is what happens when we stand together, when we demand action. And one thing that we've observed in this protest is that it really is, you know, the movement for Black Lives. It has evolved from a movement of Black people versus the police to a movement of young people versus racism. And we see the complexion of the protest changing. Right? We've been out there, we've seen it on TV. 54% of protesters are white. 32% of protesters are Black and they're Latino and multiracial, but the generational composition of those protests does not look like America. 85% of protesters are under the age of 39. This is young people standing up, standing together, and we have to do the same thing on election day.
That's great. That's a really exciting to hear. So Terrance, what are some of the messages that you've seen that are effective in terms of helping young people and people of color vote?
You know, one is protest, right? Like a lot of young people and a lot of people of color feel connected to the protest, even if they didn't participate themselves, because it was on all of our timelines. Everybody had, you know, saw the signs held up and your favorite celebrity was out there. And it felt like something that as a community, we were all doing together. And for the first time, Black people felt like that our voices were being amplified by the allies and the many other people who are frustrated and getting and sick and tired of the system as it is. And so talking to young people about how we have actually achieved change. Police officers are being fired. Jurisdictions are rethinking their budgets. It is working. And voting, while it will not solve everything, and I think this is where we've fallen short with young people, is this transaction of, if you vote, then your problems are solved. And that is not how it works. We have to vote and then we have to stay engaged. But it is a part of our progress. And it is the most important tool that we have to affect change. And the other message that we've seen work is a punitive power of voting. We could go fire people with our votes. You know, this ain't always about hiring people that we like. Sometimes it's about firing people that deserve to be fired, reminding them they work for us. And young people are very mobilized by that. There's a prosecutor in your city that need to be fired. There's a judge that need to be fired. There's a member of the state legislature that feel like they should be given tax cuts instead of funding education. Go fire him too. And there's a president that is giving you a whole lot of damn good reasons to fire him too. And so no matter what you feel about the person on the other side, your vote has the power to fire people. And we should fire a whole bunch of them on November 3rd.
Man, I'm just sitting over here just like it's church. I'm just sitting here just in it. Oh Lord. Man, fire. That's the word for the day. Fire.
Let's fire some people.
Man, because I just appreciate you saying that, because it's true. It's we the people. This is a government that works for the people, ran by the people, and these are our representatives. And so we have to, I like how you said also, you have to vote, but also you have to stay engaged, because voting doesn't solve all the problems. It's the first step in solving those problems, but it's a big step. It's an important one that it can't be bypassed.
So Crystal, have you had conversations with friends and family who may have been subjected to or seen misinformation, for example, telling them that their vote doesn't count? And if you have, how are you talking to those folks?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Lots of conversations, especially like with my Black family members as well, that feel completely disenfranchised, completely like the system is completely rigged. And what I can say, and I'm sure like Terrance will have 1,000 more answers for us, but like what I try to say is, you might be voting for a politician per se, but go to their website and see what the policies are, because hopefully you're actually ushering in policy change and things of that nature. But just thinking about like, what was it, 70,000 or 90,000 votes really in key states that made Trump president.
And I think Donald Trump may have really screwed up, because he should have probably disenfranchised Black folks privately the way Republicans been doing. But instead, this fool has gone on TV every day screaming about how he's, how the votes ain't gonna count and dumping them in the river, and I'm gonna stop the post office, and Black folks got time. And we see in Georgia in early voting, we see in Texas that Black folks have all the time. It's gonna take 6 hours, good, because I brought 8 hours with me, and they're gonna wait, and they're gonna get it done. And I think that what he has created is a resilience and a stubbornness of Blackness, that you're not just gonna tell me what I can't do, right? You're not just gonna stop me from doing what I know I'm supposed to do. I mean, this is the election that I would like to see 100% turnout from Black people, just to send a message to America. You got us messed up. Try this again. Try this again, and we're gonna clap back. Now, you better be racist in private, because when you put this racism on TV, we're gonna have to clap back now. And I think that's what we're seeing. It's a Black clapback.
And hearing that, Terrance, I really think we need a Black GOTV program called the Black Clapback, because that would be absolutely amazing. And I think one of the things that's also important to keep in mind is that, yes, like turnout among Black voters, younger voters was down in 2016, but the real reason that Donald Trump is in the White House right now running for re-election is because the majority of white people voted for him, either because they supported his racist views or because racism was not seen as a disqualifying issue for them. But I think one of the most important stories of 2018 is the turnout among Black women. Because Black women, let's just be super clear about that, are absolutely positively amazing. And I think that if the rest of us voted in the same way that Black women do, things would change. The whole game would change. And we wouldn't necessarily be talking about a Black clapback, because we would have so much more of the things that we actually need and want. So Lincia, tell me a little bit about your experiences talking to friends and family. Have you talked to folks who may have been targets or have seen some of the disinformation on social media that Crystal referenced a moment ago?
This is the hardest thing, because when I hear people who have been misinformed in different ways, like it just hurts me to my core, to my spirit. And so I just want to, for lack of a better word, correct it. But I've learned that that's not particularly the most effective way to approach the situation, because I feel that you lose your audience a lot of the times if you sort of attack people on their views. So I really try to take a step back and practice active listening. And although it's cliche, like seek to understand people before trying to be understood. And it's a cliche for a reason because it's freaking true. And I think if we take our time, I try to take my time to understand where somebody's coming from with whatever political view, however they feel about voting or not voting, and all of the like, before I try to prescribe a solution, if that makes sense, because that helps me understand the origin of where they came to their understanding. And I just think it creates a safer space for people to share. Like, I'm trying not to just shut people down, because I don't think that's going to create any change in anybody's mind or spirit. So it's been a lot of like breathing and a whole, like taking my time and asking a lot of questions. I think somebody mentioned like saying, just asking why, like, where did you come to this understanding? Like, what, if it's social media, like what kind of stuff have you been interacting with that has led you to this, and that again gives me just a truer understanding and helps me create a safer space where I can like continue to create a relationship with this person or this group of people with certain disenfranchised information, because everyone's perspective is different. Like we call it disenfranchised or misinformed, but for them, for whoever it is, it's independent, it's grounded, it's informed, the exact opposite. So I just try to respect people in that and meet them at a place of compassion and empathy to their experiences, and then just sprinkle a little bit of the truth on top. And when it's
actually, and I'm really glad that you said that, because it is about, for me, being a bridge maker. It is also about reaching across the aisle and having these conversations, although difficult, yes. But also, listening and trying to understand where they're coming from, and then calling them out, with love and with compassion. And so that's another thing that I think is so vitally important right now.
So I want to thank you so much for being here, for sharing your experiences, for giving us some hope, some inspiration, some optimism in this 2020 year, which will undoubtedly go down in history for a whole bunch of reasons. And thank you so much for helping to explain to folks that our vote is power. And we will see you at the polls.